Hey there. So this is a video response to someone named Neon Leo 1 who commented on a travel post by Gabriel Traveler, a post about India. We were just doing some comments back and forth, and I had mentioned that I knew that the time zone in Nepal was close to that of India because I'd had friends who were teaching English with a NGO, a non-governmental organization in Nepal many years ago, and that I remember them talking to me about, it's basically like 12 hours and 45 minutes, ahead of Colorado. They were from Colorado Springs, down the south part of Colorado, and we were friends. And so that's kind of beside the point. The point is that as a result of the conversation, Neon Leo asked the following, and I'll read directly what he said. NGOs are teaching English to all the non-speaking ones of this world. I've always wondered, and let us use the Nepali people as an example for the South Asian region of this world, why that they should learn the language of English. There was maybe a verb missing there, but basically it's two questions. Wondered, why are NGOs teaching English to all the non-English speaking countries of the world, and why English? So, and that's a huge question, which is why I decided to do a video response, because I think typing out a comment on someone else's video about a completely unrelated thing was just like not cool. So I said, okay. So just a little bit in answering the question. My background is that I have lived overseas for a total of 5.5 years. I lived for a semester of high school in the UK. I lived in China, the People's Republic of China, for 1 year from 1990 to 1991, where I was teaching English. And I lived in France, in Paris, France, for 4 years. So I have extensive overseas experience. I've worked with an NGO, what could be considered an NGO, in China, and I have known many people who have worked for an NGO. So I have a little bit of experience about, what they do and how it is that they're doing it. And I'm currently working for a nonprofit, assisting refugees and immigrants in learning and acquiring English. So I've been a teacher since 1990. Yeah, I'm old. I'm 48 years old, and I got my master's degree in 1995 in curriculum and instruction for teaching English to speakers of other languages, to the linguistically diverse, which involved a lot of education about language acquisition and so on. So I think there's two issues that are going on in this question. One is talking about non-governmental organizations and what might be called the hegemony of English. And then the second part, which is why English. So first of all, let's address hegemony. So here it is. It looks backwards. Crap. So yeah, what is it with the video being backwards? I don't know, but I can't. I'm doing this all in one shot. I am not editing this. This is raw. It's going up on YouTube. That is that. I don't have time to work with editing this. So read this backwards. It basically says hegemony, dominance over others, whether it's a country, a social group, or a language. So yeah, imagine it flipped around. I'm on my iPhone. It should just naturally, I thought the iPhone was doing a pretty good job of like flipping this stuff around, but apparently not. So, but hegemony, dominance of a country or a language. And I learned this term when I was in graduate school from a professor named Dr. Sheila Shannon. She was the professor I had for 2 different university master's degree courses, and she was the one who introduced the term to me. And it is the dominance of English language. And I think, why are NGOs doing this? Well, in part, we have colonialism of Great Britain to thank. There was a point in time where, can't think of what the expression was, but basically I think it was the sun doesn't set on the British Empire because it was so extensive and so far reaching, it just, covered the globe. And what language do they speak in Great Britain? They speak English. So that's kind of a no-brainer there. One reason for the dominance of the English language on this planet is because of colonialism of Great Britain between the 17th and 20th centuries. So roughly a 300-year period of colonization. So there's that reason for the hegemony of English. I think there is a second reason for the hegemony of English that is somewhat separate from hegemony because of colonization, and that is because it has become what we call the lingua franca, or the language of use for science and technology, that for, I'm sure, a myriad of historical and social and political reasons, the United States in particular has become a leader ever since, I would say, post-World War I. So after 1918, and with the Industrial Revolution emerging out of Great Britain and Europe, that, there were so many discoveries and patents and technologies that were emerging out of the United States. And these technologies, were developed with English. And I was just thinking of like early computer programming, for example. Like if you go into the history of computer programming, it's based in large part in English. And the way to communicate how to learn programming has been in English. There's so many aspects of science and technology. And I think that explains the prevalence of English on the planet. I taught in China, as I said before, and China has emerged as one of, if not the strongest economy of Asia right now. And so I think China has had a tremendous influence. Just also the fact that there's over 1 billion people in that country. And that's, just the population alone is massive. So what I wanted to say about that was in 1978, the leader who came right after Mao Zedong, named Deng Xiaoping, came up with something called the 4 modernizations, which in Chinese is 四个现代化. Agriculture, industry, national defense, science, and technology were the goals of education and of modernizing China, of bringing them out of what was called the Cultural Revolution and into the modern age, because the Cultural Revolution under Mao Zedong had really thrown China back. Really, it was famine and poverty and lack of development, lack of modernization. Deng Xiaoping saw that to catch up with the rest of the world, and think about this, in 1978 to 1980, think about what was happening with personal computing, with technology, with the emergence of so much that we take for granted today, like the fact that I'm filming this on a smartphone, okay? So as a part of the commitment to science and technology, in 1980, Deng Xiaoping agreed to open the People's Republic of China, which had been closed to many nations and nationalities, but the United States in particular, and opened up China to accept English teachers. And the reason for this was that as a part of the four modernizations of agriculture, industry, national defense, and science and technology, advances and modernizations in those four areas were happening in English. And so there was this huge push to bring English teachers to China, and that is one reason that I was there in 1990, is I was brought in under a program that invited English teachers to come and work with people. So to go back to the question, because I know I'm going to be running out of time, and this is already like 10 minutes long. Why NGOs? In part because there's a demand that a lot of countries that are also trying to modernize their infrastructure, modernize their economies, they're doing the same thing that China was doing back in 1980, which is trying to pull the economy into the current age of science and technology. And yes, there's an underlying reason, just like when the Roman Empire had taken over so much of the planet, and Latin became the language that was used across the region to communicate, to have a common form of communication. I think that with the advent of science and technology, English has sort of taken that same role of that Latin used to with the Latin Empire. Is this dominance something healthy and something good? I don't know. I don't think so in a lot of ways, because the dominance of English language has systematically wiped out a lot of other languages. I was thinking in particular of the situation of the Native Americans in the United States, and when children were forced to go to English-speaking schools and they lost their native language. This is hegemony, like at its absolute worst, where it is a cultural and social dominance over another people in an attempt to eradicate those people. So, no, I don't think the hegemony of English is good. Are NGOs trying to engage in the hegemony of English? There could be, I think, a case that is made for that. On the other hand, I know that most NGOs are involved in teaching English because they were invited to do so by the host country. And that it is one exchange. It's like, okay, we'll let you into this country, NGO, but as a part of that, you need to give something back to our country. And part of that oftentimes is the teaching of English, because, I was thinking of the whole, native speaker versus someone who's a non-native speaker who's trying to teach, that it's true that people who often have the language as their native language are able to help increase the quality of that language teaching, especially if they've been trained in something like what I do, which is teaching English to speakers of other languages. So I hope, Neon Leo One, that answers a little bit of your question, and that you have a better grasp of why it is that they should learn the language of English. I think it's in part because they want to be able to improve their countries in the areas of science and technology. And the fact is that the language of science and technology at this point in time is English. So I think that's it. I'm going to see how long this is and go ahead and try to upload it from my phone. So take care. Over and out.